Welcome back. The 3G World Congress and Exhibition in Hong Kong last week attracted thousands of mobile phone makers, software manufacturers, network operators, and content providers, all showcasing their latest innovations. Michael Wong takes us there to see the latest cutting-edge 3G technology.
The Chinese dragon dances to the drum and gong as an old Chinese tradition to start an event. Yet there's nothing old and traditional about this year's 3G World Congress, where more than 9,000 telecom industry members meet up and show off their latest technology. Phone makers showcase their latest models of 3G phones, hoping that mobile network operators will use them to draw in new customers. For others, the opportunities are abundant.
There used to be two 256 meg devices to get to a 512, and now it's a single 512 meg device.
Intel, the world's biggest computer chip maker, is offering 3G phone makers a faster memory chip that allows mobile handsets to deliver complicated audio and video streaming.
Storage to the memory is going to be faster because of faster programming speeds. So storing a phone number or storing a picture or storing video into the memory will be faster with this. And finally, the battery consumption will be lower.
For manufacturers, this smaller chip will not only help reduce the size of handsets, but also leave room for other functions, such as surfing the internet. And to truly surf the internet, Nokia has introduced this mobile phone that lets users view a whole web page, as opposed to just part of a web page on previous models. But full access to the internet with a 3G mobile phone means online security will have to be beefed up. There will be growing demand for antivirus softwares, according to this Finland firm.
The amount of viruses is rising. The number for today is, I think, around 104 viruses, trojans or worms for mobile devices. And ever since, I'd say, 6 months, the curve has been quite steep.
He says a mobile virus can directly cause financial loss by generating mobile emails from a victim's phone to others, costing the user thousands of dollars in SMS and MMS charges. For a Hong Kong 3G content maker, this exhibition offers new ways to draw in customers. And he says progress in the field has been rapid.
There's quite difference between this year and last year. Actually, first of all, is the technology progressed very fast. They are more focused on video delivery. Example, how to deliver video more smoothly. Example, a product names video sharing. It can provide so many options for the user to see the video.
With this new technology, a user will be able to preview 10 seconds of a high-quality video clip free of charge, something Ho hopes to bring to both the Hong Kong and China markets in the future.
I hope that we can use their technology and make it into Chinese language or localization and deliver to China. It is our opportunity in this exhibition.
3G is still far from becoming reality in China. The Chinese government was expected to grant free 3G licenses within this year, but the exact timetable and applications still haven't been announced.
So this is our newly designed high-end product.
For countries that have limited phone connectivity, one manufacturer proposes substituting fixed-line networks with wireless technology used in 3G, replacing telephone lines laid underground. In poorer countries, high crime rates mean there's no guarantee the fixed line will stay fixed.
They lay the copper today will disappear tomorrow because it will not be there. And also if you go to India, and before you landed in Mumbai airport, you see a lot of slums around the airport. And it's impossible for you to get a phone line into this area.
But most analysts believe the big money is still in the richer markets, particularly after 5 years of struggle.
5 years ago, 3G was a lot of hype. The licenses have been awarded mainly in Europe, huge sums. And 3G was going to be the universal salvation for declining voice revenues. Now, over the past 5 years, we've been through a massive telecoms downturn. So there's been limited interest in video telephony, for example. That was one great 3G-enabled application. Didn't work on the landline side 20 years ago, isn't working on the mobile side right now. Now we're starting to see some very interesting demonstrations in terms of mobile TV. And I think the difference there is that consumers, they know exactly what the proposition is with mobile TV. It's TV on your handset. It's very simple to understand the value of that.
While 3G TV may become the killer app for both mobile network operators and handset manufacturers, many believe cheaper prices for both mobile handsets and services will be the real triggers for 3G to become popular.
And that price cutting is yet to be seen here in Hong Kong, where just 3 of the 4 3G licensees have even launched services. With me now to talk more about this is telecoms consultant Jeremy Godfrey of PA Consulting. And Jeremy, they say that Hong Kong is a good test ground for 3G licenses for other operators that might want to launch somewhere else in the world. But here we have 7 million mobile contracts, but only 500,000, less than 7%, are 3G. I mean, is it price that's holding people back right now?
I don't think price is the major issue. I think for people to take up 3G, they need a combination of 3 things. They need the right service at the right price, they need the right handsets, and they need the right applications. Because unless there's some good reason to use 3G, why would anybody pay the price premium? Now, until a few months ago, handsets really were a bit of a problem. But with the launch of the latest generation of 3G handsets, they've now reached the point where they're light enough, they're small enough, the batteries last long enough, they're easy enough to use that I think handsets are increasingly not going to be a barrier to the take-up of 3G. The other issue we do have is applications. Now, in Hong Kong, and indeed anywhere else in the world, in the early days of 3G, there's a little bit of a vicious circle that stops the growth of the market happening very quickly overnight. And that is, if there are no applications, then there's very little reason for consumers to take up the service. But if there are very few consumers using 3G, why would anybody adapt their website so that it looked good on a 3G phone? Why would anybody develop a game that people could play on a 3G phone? So that means that the applications development is also quite slow. So slow applications development leads to slow market take-up. And slow market take-up means there's not much incentive to increase the pace of development. But over time, as the market grows, that vicious circle turns into a virtuous circle, and we'll reach a tipping point when more users leads to more applications, and the market will grow very fast.
But is it a matter of, when you talk about 3G replacing 2G, and you have things like mobile network developers talking about even faster connection, 3.5G, and they have a thing called HSDPA. I mean, is the technology ahead of what the consumer can comprehend?
I think with something like HSDPA, which is really just a faster version of 3G, there's not too much to worry about the technology getting ahead. It takes a long time for these technologies to get out of the labs into consumer-friendly handsets, for example, as we've seen with 3G. So I'd be worried, actually, if the equipment developers weren't several years ahead of the consumers. So I think the issue really of 3G replacing 2G is much more pragmatic. It is there a good reason to use 3G? Now, I'm a big fan personally of 3G because I like to use the video conferencing to see my children when I'm traveling. But that on its own is not going to drive a big 3G market.
Well, I was going to say this. I mean, does anybody want to be seen where they are at the time of a phone call? It never took off with fixed lines, and certainly it doesn't seem to be catching on very quickly with 3G.
I think we're certainly finding that for business applications, for example, video conferencing doesn't really add very much. So I think for people in a certain kind of social context, video conferencing is a good thing. But that's not going to drive 3G. What's going to drive 3G will be the ability to deal with emails when you're on the move, the ability to visit news websites, the ability to play games, the ability to download some multimedia clips, the ability to share photographs, which you can do on some 2G technologies, but you can do more effectively and more conveniently with 3G.
The players that we've got right now, Hutch, SmartTone, CSL, they've poured billions into 3G technology. Now, can they make it back? How long is it going to take for them to make it back?
Well, I think ultimately 3G will take over from 2G. The question, as you say, is how long will that take? Now that the handsets have got to what I'd call a kind of fairly sweet spot, of price and performance. I think the tipping point is not that far away. I wouldn't be at all surprised to find that in the next 1 year, maybe the next 2 years, we see a really fast acceleration in the take-up of 3G. And just as everybody has been surprised and depressed by how slow 3G has been to develop, I think what we'll find over the next 2 years is that people will be equally surprised and elated by how fast, when the tipping point comes, how fast the migration will be.
One last question, and China, the China market, the huge market for 3G, but they've been slow to pick up on it. It hasn't been launched in China yet. Do you see it taking off there anytime soon?
I think 3G is very interesting in developing markets like China and India. Just as in those markets, a 2G phone for many people is the only phone they have, a 3G phone in those markets for many people will be the only computer they have and the only internet access device that they have. So I think the market for 3G in those countries is actually quite different from in more advanced economies, and in some ways there's reasons to believe that they will in fact take off very quickly. But it is of course dependent on the handsets being at the right price point, given the lower income levels. So I think they've been quite right to be cautious and delay their launch. When it comes, I think we may well find that, that the take-up in those countries is even faster than you might expect.
Okay, Jeremy Godfrey, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
And that is Money Magazine for this week. Thank you for joining us. Good night.
You're with TV